The man in front of you, Soo-ho, had sold himself to North Korea years ago in order to save his sister. He became a North Korean agent out of gratitude. For more than a decade, he never questioned his adoptive father until he met Yang-ro in South Korea. Her kindness and warmth filled the emotional void he had lived with for years. But when a weapon without feelings is awakened by love, there's always a price. A sudden explosion in the dormitory shifted the entire power dynamic inside the building. The woman was the first to rush over to help Soo-ho. His comrade also escaped from the basement. Meanwhile, Yang-ro's father, worried about his daughter's safety, immediately returned to the command center, insisting he needed to see with his own eyes that Yang-ro was still alive. At that moment, Yang-ro was being targeted by his comrade. Just as he was about to be struck, Soo-ho arrived in time. The female doctor, realizing that Soo-ho had taken Yang-ro to meet her father, quickly followed the comrade and gave a strict order. If Yang-ro showed any abnormal behavior, shoot her immediately. In the hallway, Yang-ro asked to call her father. She had no idea that Soo-ho was already taking her to see him. The comrade was right behind them, and Soo-ho couldn't explain much. When he didn't respond to her questions, Yang-ro grew angry and threw away the pigeon necklace that symbolized their love. She desperately wanted to say goodbye to her brother. She didn't know what Soo-ho had sacrificed to protect her, nor how much that necklace meant to him. His comrade then stepped forward and pointed a gun at Yang-ro. As she was about to leave, Soo-ho gave her a subtle warning not to say anything reckless, otherwise, her life could be in danger. Outside in the snowy mountains, Yang-ro's father waited anxiously. In the distance, he finally saw the frail figure of his daughter. Overcome with emotion, he shouted her name. Yang-ro responded nervously. Soo-ho watched carefully, sensing danger. Yang-ro lost control of her emotions and began shouting things she shouldn't say. Soo-ho quickly called her back from the window, trying to calm her down. But she was too overwhelmed. She screamed out the window, saying she no longer trusted anyone inside. Soo-ho glanced at his comrade. Machine guns were already in position. Sensing that Yang-ro was in danger, he threw himself over her just in time, shielding her from the gunfire. Yang-ro's father watched helplessly from outside as chaos broke out. Soo-ho was shot in the arm while protecting Yang-ro. Upon hearing the gunshots, the female commander rushed in. Seeing Yang-ro completely out of control, she finally lost patience. Elsewhere, "I've never seen such a calculating old man," the woman said coldly, referring to Soo-ho's father. To maintain his position, he can just discard such a handsome son like it's nothing. In public, he pretended to care about his children, but in reality, he had helped the North Koreans get rid of his own South Korean son. Meanwhile, the female commander had watched Soo-ho risk his life for Yang-ro over and over. As his superior, she had long wanted to take action. Soo-ho noticed everything but had no choice but to prioritize the bigger mission. Outwardly, he followed orders and placed Yang-ro in isolation in the basement. But in secret, he continued to gather evidence against both the South and North Korean authorities. Meanwhile, Yang-ro's father, driven by desperation, called North Korean command. The person who answered the phone had already been replaced. The woman on the line demanded $3 billion in cash to be delivered within 3 days. Realizing that the North was exploiting them, Yang-ro's father became furious. During negotiations, Soo-ho requested that Black Fox's ex-girlfriend be brought in again. After listening to a recorded conversation, Soo-ho still couldn't believe his father would treat him this way. He quickly turned on the listening device and tuned into a specific channel to verify whether his father had really been replaced. The female officer noticed something was wrong and followed Soo-ho into the room. Soo-ho rushed in to explain that they were trying to confirm the next step from the organization. Then he heard a strange electric sound from the transmitter and immediately began recording. Someone decoded a message. In 8 days, all hostages were to be eliminated. A pleased smile spread across one person's face. But Soo-ho had intercepted a different code. All the current evidence pushed him toward forming a new plan. Meanwhile, completely unaware of this, the female officer was burning evidence of Yang-ro's identity. Hearing someone enter, she casually greeted them until she found a gun pointed at her. Moments later, Soo-ho entered, disarmed her, and took her weapon. The real drama was about to begin. After 11 long episodes, Soo-ho was finally going to turn against his side. Before making his move, he returned to the basement, where Yang-oh was being held, and stared at her. Soo-ho warned, "Don't go upstairs later, no matter what." Then, with Black Fox, he detained the female commander. At that moment, Bunoke happened to pass by and overheard their tense conversation. She immediately realized the situation had changed and attempted to report what she heard. Bunoke quickly informed the comrade of what was happening. The comrade rushed over, gun in hand, with Bunoke trailing behind him to offer support. But Soo-ho and Black Fox had already prepared for this. They quickly subdued both women without giving them a chance to resist. Bunoke panicked. To protect the position she had worked so hard to earn, she ran to the basement and pretended to inform Yang-oh that everything upstairs had been handled. She pulled Yang-oh away and, hearing the noise above, told her to head up with her. In a small room, Soo-ho played back an audio recording sent by Black Fox's ex-girlfriend, evidence to help Yang-oh and the others see the truth. To further confirm his claims, Soo-ho asked the female commander to contact North Korean command for the latest mission orders. She did, sending a coded telegram. Soo-ho's adoptive father received the message and relayed the new orders. As expected, they were to execute. Suddenly, Bunoke tried to make a deal with Yang-oh. She offered Yang-oh's life in exchange for the release of the female commander and the comrade. Soo-ho and Black Fox had no choice but to lower their weapons. Just then, when they were about to retaliate, the schoolmaster arrived carrying boxes of oranges, trying to insert herself into the operation again. Yang-oh, frustrated by Bunoke's constant manipulation, stopped her. She pulled Bunoke aside and pressed Bunoke's gun against her own stomach, making a bold and self-sacrificing gesture. For a moment, Bunoke hesitated, but under pressure from her superior, she still chose to press the trigger. But it wasn't a bullet that loaded into the chamber. Instead, it misfired. Bunoke stood frozen. She had just poured her soul into this plan. The female commander, witnessing everything, clenched her jaw in fury. They had nearly succeeded. Realizing that she had never truly won the female commander's trust, Bunoke collapsed to the ground, devastated. Meanwhile, Soo-ho returned to the hall and revealed the full truth to everyone present that the authorities are not trying to save them. At first, the students refused to believe what they were hearing, until Black Fox stepped forward and testified, confirming Soo-ho's claims. Despite her failed coup, Bunoke wasn't ready to give up. She secretly returned to her room, deciding to contact the outside world using the arrow-encoded communication system. She intended to reveal Soo-ho's betrayal to North Korean command. But just as she was about to send the message, all she could hear was, "Can't hear you. Can't hear you." Something had gone wrong. Meanwhile, Yang-oh's father was outside, anxiously waiting. He was under enormous pressure. North Korea had threatened that if he didn't pay the money within 3 days, the hostages would be executed. Worried sick, he called Soo-ho again. But this time, Soo-ho specifically demanded money from Black Fox, and that a signal jammer be brought inside. The woman knew very well that her top priority was to obtain secretly filmed footage from earlier, specifically, the video of the first 30 hostages being released. When the students saw the footage of the released hostages, they were shocked. Some gasped in disbelief. The scene shifted. Those in charge began planning their next move. They decided to use this footage as evidence to expose the corruption of high-level officials. But each major media outlet already had embedded personnel loyal to either side, making this effort incredibly difficult. Even so, they were determined to spread the truth. Their first step was to back up the footage. Soo-ho volunteered to handle this task. But when he went to retrieve the tape he had given to Yang-oh earlier, intending to make a copy, he discovered it contained pages from her personal diary. The entries were filled with youthful innocence, confessions of love and heartache like text messages left unsent. They pierced right into Soo-ho's heart. He smiled softly. His long-numbed, broken heart was once again warmed. He quietly pressed play on the recorder. Somewhere else, Black Fox X walked down the hall, exuding power and sharpness. Her presence alone commanded attention. Though she had ended their engagement, she still cared deeply about Black Fox. Watching her former fiancé caught in crisis again, she ignored the risks to her own future. Secretly, she had smuggled classified materials into the hostage building, while on the surface, she returned to the command center under the pretense of carrying out a mission. At the request of one of the hostages' parents, she brought back footage showing the real conditions inside. In the video footage, the students inside the dormitory pretended to be cheerful as they filmed themselves, trying to make the outside forces look foolish. When the camera turned to Young-ro, she used the moment to send a subtle reminder to her father, "Please make sure the hostages inside stay safe." The commander saw his former love, female doctor. Seeing her suffering on screen, he felt a pang of sorrow. Meanwhile, the female doctor was reminded of the time years ago when Soo-ho had once saved her life. Thinking about how the organization now treated him so cruelly despite his loyalty, she quietly made up her mind. She would no longer blindly follow orders. At this point, only the comrade still clung stubbornly to his beliefs, even lashing out and accusing Soo-ho of being nothing more than a disposable pawn. He had dedicated over a decade of his life to serving the regime, only to be discarded when it no longer suited them. Young-ho listened and felt deeply unsettled. To comfort Soo-ho, she pulled out her late mother's old coffee pot and, in a small attic space, brewed coffee for him. She told him, "This coffee will help you forget all the bad memories." Soo-ho gave a faint smile, indulging her words. As they reminisced about the sweet moments when they first met, he found himself unable to hold back anymore. Before turning and gently kissing her. After days of heightened tension, the two finally shared a tender, intimate moment. But elsewhere, the character most hated by audiences was making her move, Bunoke, newly appointed as the counterintelligence lead by the female commander. She arrogantly strutted into the hostage hall, exuding confidence. When the others saw she had defected, they were stunned, but not entirely surprised. She gave a few brief orders before leaving the hall, and whispers of doubt and unrest began to ripple among the captives. Bunoke shot a cold glance at one of the female students, and with a look of disdain, slapped her hard across the face. The lady had long harbored resentment toward Bunoke. The female student tried to stand up and fight back, but Bunoke immediately pulled out a gun, forcing her to back down. Seeing everyone now submit to her out of fear, Bunoke felt an unprecedented surge of power. Never in her life had she experienced this kind of respect. Driven by vanity and a thirst for revenge, she and the comrade began flaunting their authority, even eating snacks in front of the other hostages just to provoke them. And as if possessed, the comrade began to fall for Bunoke. Clearly, even in dire circumstances, personal tastes could be wildly unpredictable. In the corridor, Bunoke stared in disbelief as the comrade personally dismantled a bomb wire for her. Watching his confident movements, she suddenly found him handsome and couldn't help but smile with joy. Elsewhere, Young-ro's father. Inside the dormitory, a rebellion had begun to stir. When he heard this, he knew instantly the people inside were as good as dead. After learning the full scope of Commander's explosive setup, Young-ro's father forces pointed guns at the commander in a rage. He screamed, "I just lost my son. My only daughter is still in there." But the commander refused to back down. He reminded him, "My fiancée, the female doctor, is still inside too." Back inside the dormitory, the Black Fox, worried about mass panic, chose not to tell the students about the bombs. The Black Fox gathered everyone and revealed the harsh truth. There was a traitor among them. The moment this was said, Bunoke, who had already committed plenty of shady deeds, instantly tensed up. Afraid the others might suspect her again, she quickly shifted the blame to the schoolmaster, revealing the identity of a North Korean informant planted among them. This sparked outrage among the students, and chaos erupted. While the accused spy stood frozen, unsure how to respond, Young-ro stepped forward and defended her. "If she meant to hurt us," she said, "she would have done it already." Bunoke, sensing she was losing control of the situation, tried to flee. But the furious students weren't going to let her get away that easily. In the midst of this standoff, something strange happened. A chicken clucked loudly, drawing everyone's attention. Black Fox suddenly remembered, the only person who hadn't shown up to the chapel was the cafeteria cook. He recalled how she had seemed suspicious in the kitchen earlier. To his shock, the cook turned out to be a planted agent as well. But by the time they confronted her, her mind was already unstable. She could barely speak coherently. It became painfully clear that every loyal North Korean spy had ended up in tragedy. The female doctor, witnessing all of this, felt her beliefs begin to crumble even further. Meanwhile, Yang Ero's father was trying to arrange a last-minute rescue team, but they lacked critical intel. No one knew the exact location. This severely limited the mission's effectiveness. Just then, Soo-ho contacted her father and delivered a message. Yang Ero wanted to speak to him directly. She was afraid that the inevitable battle that night would take innocent lives. With only Soo-ho and Black Tiger left to protect the others, she wanted to make one final effort to prevent bloodshed. Her father rushed to the back mountain, determined to see his daughter. When Yang Ero's father finally saw her, he tried to grab her and flee, but it was too late. The situation had already spiraled into unavoidable conflict. Just then, Yang Ero made a devastating decision. She threw herself in front of a bullet meant for Soo-ho. As the sound of the gunshot echoed, Yang Ero's father screamed but was shot. Blood streamed down and collapsed. Outside, the media caught wind of what had happened and began to report it widely. As he collapsed, the man in charge simply smiled. Soo-ho, carrying Yang Ero in his arms, returned to the dormitory, only to be confronted by the comrade. He scolded him, saying, "You betrayed everything for a woman from the south." Unbeknownst to them, Bunoke had overheard everything. The female doctor analyzed the situation and concluded that the North would likely launch a full-scale attack very soon. Just as she predicted, the building's power was cut, and the students were relocated to a small room on the rooftop. Suddenly, the man in charge himself led a team through the window, beginning a final sweep of the building. Just as full-scale violence seemed inevitable, the female doctor's voice rang out. She stepped forward, covered in explosives, halting the team in their tracks. She took off her mask and threw it to the ground. With calm determination, Soo-ho warned, "If you don't retreat within 10 seconds, everything will blow." The man in charge was stunned. Just as they were about to capture the remaining spies, he found himself face to face with the woman he once loved. Her tears and resolve finally persuaded him. Shouting loudly, he declared he would rescue her no matter what and ordered an immediate retreat from the dormitory. The crisis was momentarily defused. Afterward, the female doctor proposed a new plan. "This situation won't last. We need cooperation from both sides, North and South. And let's be honest, everything depends on money." She believed the only real leverage was cash. When she announced her plan to go retrieve funds, Soo-ho's team was skeptical. After all, what guarantee was there she'd return? The female doctor turned to Soo-ho and asked, "Give me one reason to come back." She confessed, "I want to live the rest of my life with you." Soo-ho didn't answer directly, but the look in his eyes gave her strength. She called the man in charge and said she had convinced every spy in the facility to support her and asked for someone to come pick her up. The man in charge, overwhelmed with problems, hurriedly kissed his wife and left to retrieve her himself. But when the female doctor returned to headquarters, she slapped him hard across the face. "How could you?" she yelled. With her training and courage, she wasn't finished yet. As expected, this was no ordinary woman. She playfully demanded that the man in charge help them wash up, unaware that a woman was eavesdropping beneath the bed. That woman, Black Fox X, had arrived early, installed a bugging device, and captured incriminating photos of the female doctor and man in charge in an intimate moment. Now, every move the female doctor made was under surveillance. The next day, the female doctor completely abandoned her usual professional look in a white lab coat. She now appeared in a stylish outfit, signaling she was after something big, money. The monk, who always acted arrogant and untouchable, was stunned. This woman, who was supposed to be locked away in her dorm, was suddenly right in front of him. He instantly understood what she had to do. Everything was unfolding exactly as the female doctor had planned. First, she manipulated the priest into letting his wife handle financial affairs. Then, at a boutique, she conveniently bumped into a bank investment manager, also placed there ahead of time. Now, all she needed was one last thing: a Swiss bank account under the man in charge's identity. Just then, man in charge received a call from the female doctor. Elated, he treated her like a beloved partner and, without hesitation, gave her his passport number. Meanwhile, in a hospital room elsewhere, an elderly woman removed her husband's oxygen tank, causing him to go into respiratory distress. But miraculously, his eyes opened wide. He had been at death's door, and somehow pulled himself back. Elsewhere, Black Fox X, Hannah, who had her suspicions, learned that the female doctor intended to move all the funds to a Swiss account. As soon as Black Fox confirmed this, he returned and was stunned to find Soo-ho standing there. The woman had just deposited 3 billion won, and in return, the female doctor gave her a fake diamond ring. Unaware of the truth, she gratefully smiled and thanked him. Later, as the female doctor returned to her hotel room, she noticed the cleaning lady acting strangely. She inspected the lamp, and sure enough, found a bugging device. Meanwhile, tensions were rising. Black Tiger and Soo-ho clashed. He accused him of using the female doctor as bait and believed only the doctor could lead them out of this alive. He handed Soo-ho a note. It was an order from North Korean authorities, demanding he blow up the dorm that very night. If he didn't, his younger sister would die. Now the female doctor faced her own inner turmoil. Should she trust Soo-ho's promises? Eventually, she picked up the radio and contacted them. "I've secured the money. I'll return to the dorm by 10 p.m. tonight." Soo-ho, deeply moved, stared at Black Fox. But he simply borrowed the radio, claiming it needed charging, and headed downstairs. There, he ran into schoolmaster and asked her to help charge it. Coincidentally, Banoke passed by and, sensing something was off, quietly followed. Outside the door, she overheard everything. The female doctor was a spy, and worse, she had already been smuggled out. Stunned, Banoke's mind began racing. She waited for them to leave, then picked up the radio to contact national intelligence and leak everything she'd just heard. Soon after, the authorities stormed the female doctor's residence. At that moment, the doctor had just returned to pack her things. As she opened the door, she ran directly into them, just as a critical call came through. Black Fox X had already helped her escape in her car. As they drove away, the female doctor grew uneasy. Someone had betrayed them. Judging from the evidence, Black Fox X was the most likely suspect. To stop her from leaking the truth, the female doctor knocked her unconscious and fled. At the same time, Soo-ho was trying to escape by climbing over a wall, when suddenly a loud gunshot rang out behind him. Elsewhere, the man in charge returned home holding 999 roses, but the moment he arrived, he was met by his superiors standing at the door. The deputy minister, who had long disliked him and resented how casually he ignored authority, finally had solid evidence to bring him down. He wasted no time. The man in charge initially tried to protect the female doctor by downplaying their connection. But once the photos of their intimacy were revealed, he had nothing left to say. Meanwhile, back in the dormitory, Soo-ho finally convinced the comrade to send a telegram to North Korea. They reported that Operation Peony No. 1 had been compromised, and warned not to act rashly because 3 billion won was still inside the building. At the hospital, Yaro's father, who had been pretending to be unconscious this whole time, realized he couldn't sit by any longer. If he wanted to save his daughter, he would have to work with the spies inside the dorm. At that moment, he received a call directly from the president. Dead or alive, he was to protect national interests. The female doctor had escaped. She secured a new passport, cash, and a safe house. To shake off any remaining tails, she orchestrated a dramatic decoy explosion. Just as everyone assumed she was gone for good, the comrade betrayed them again. He had received new orders to eliminate Soo-ho. With only one bullet, he shot him in the arm. But another gunshot rang out, and the comrade collapsed. It was the female doctor. She had returned, with the money, and fired the shot just in time. At the same time, the man in charge was arrested for colluding with a spy. In the interrogation room, he revealed damning evidence. The deputy minister had embezzled national funds. Faced with undeniable proof, the deputy minister panicked and had no choice but to release the man in charge. Moments later, the man in charge was back in power. But his victory was short-lived. The very next moment, Yangro's father, the high-ranking official who had been watching from the shadows, barged in with a full squad, holding proof of the deputy ministers and the man in charge's crimes. He immediately ordered both men to be arrested. As they made their final desperate pleas, a familiar voice echoed over the radio, the voice of the female doctor. Her message, combined with photos from their secret meetings, sealed the man in charge's fate. With that, power shifted once again, back into Yang-ero's father's hands. The news that $300 million had been returned to the dormitory and that the female doctor had leaked sensitive information meant that even if someone wanted to cover things up now, it was too late. Even Yang-ero's father, a powerful official, couldn't stop it. Now the question of whether to blow up the dormitory resurfaced. Soo-ho's mother, hungry for power and determined to preserve her future, was even willing to kill her own biological son. When Soo-ho learned that the one who had tried to kill him multiple times was actually his own mother, he was completely devastated and unable to process it. Yang-ero wanted to comfort him, but the female doctor reached him first. She asked Soo-ho if he had ever known someone named Soo-rim, his mother. Soo-ho shook his head, denying it. But in his mind, flashbacks began to surface, images he had buried. The female doctor then whispered the password to the Swiss bank account in Soo-ho's ear, a silent gesture of trust. But it wasn't just Soo-ho who heard it. The old janitor downstairs was eavesdropping, and he heard everything too. At that moment, the last secrets of the North Korean mission came into the light. This seemingly harmless old man, who had always shuffled quietly around the dormitory, was actually a top-tier veteran spy, a 30-year master agent who had been hiding in plain sight. And now, he had received his final mission: eliminate Soo-ho. Then one of the female students who had been suspicious stumbled upon his identity. Alarmed, she rushed to warn others. This time, Soo-ho knew he might never return. He planned to leave the dormitory, hoping that if he survived, there would be no more regrets. Before leaving, he found Yang-ero again. The place they met was like their origin. He hoped Yang-ero would forget about him from then on, even rejecting the last memory he tried to give her. By now, Yang-ero was already emotionally shattered. She so badly wished that when they met again, he could return all the love she gave. Not knowing what else to do, she hugged him tightly as he turned away, hoping that the last moments together could last just a little longer. But the rest of the unit was still waiting for him. Eventually, he let go of Yang-ero's hand. What he didn't know was that following closely behind was the true final boss, the dormitory grandpa. This seemingly frail old man turned out to be a seasoned North Korean spy who had been undercover for 30 years. To fulfill the mission of assassinating Soo-ho, he went to the library, armed himself, and prepared to strike. But as soon as he left, the students discovered his true identity. They immediately ran to warn Soo-ho and the others to be careful. There was no longer time for romantic feelings. Everyone scrambled over the walls to escape with him. At that moment, the comrade finally made the right choice. But unexpectedly, the escape route had already been rigged with machine guns. The doctor made a swift decision. She gave the car to the wounded comrade and his group. She and Soo-ho continued on foot. Watching the car safely pass through the checkpoint, they finally relaxed. The two of them reached the dock safely. But they didn't expect the one waiting to kill them wasn't just any assassin, it was the grandpa. Grandpa struck quickly, showing no mercy. The comrade, now confused and gravely injured, didn't betray the identities of the other two. Meanwhile, on the other side, Hannah had already arrived at the broadcast station. She confidently grabbed the microphone and exposed the top officials and Yang-ero's father's conspiracy. But the good times didn't last long. The higher-ups quickly realized what had happened and cut the broadcast feed. At that moment, the deputy minister burst in with Hannah's father and others. Poor Hannah was immediately restrained. Yang-ero's father, concerned for his daughter's safety, still insisted on rescuing all the hostages. His son was already gone forever. Even if it meant betraying the leader himself, he was determined not to back down. But when the commander of the phone group heard the news, he knew Yang-ero's father could no longer be trusted. He decided to reappoint someone else, someone unexpected. The man in charge received a call from the commander just as he was being beaten by a group of men. In complete despair, he suddenly realized that his fate had taken a turn again, from prisoner back to power. Thinking of this, he grabbed a baseball bat and beat the men who had just attacked him, finally releasing all the frustration he had bottled up. Just then, a tank rolled into the city, shaking the ground. The man in charge, now back in power, swore to take down the corrupted machinery that had ruined everything. Meanwhile, at the dock, Soo-ho and the female doctor were ready to board a ship and leave everything behind. But before they could leave, a message came through the radio. The dormitory was about to be bombed. Soo-ho froze. As he turned to go back for her, 2 guns were raised, held by the old grandpa and his longtime partner, who had been waiting all night. Soo-ho looked at the old grandpa in disbelief. This seemingly kind and harmless elder was once a legendary spy. Speaking with the weight of decades, he asked the old man, what was the point of hiding in plain sight for 30 years? Without waiting for an answer, he turned and shot his partner. This was his final act, a sacrifice for Yang-ero's sake. Time was running out. Soo-ho took the money and drove furiously back toward the dormitory. At the same time, Hannah, who had been secretly released, initiated the final mission to rescue the hostages. The students were guided to the underground tunnels. As Black Fox cautiously opened the exit door, Soo-ho arrived just in time. The students boarded the escape vehicle, but someone was missing, Yang-o. Black Fox and Soo-ho urged the others to leave and turned back to find her. Entering the tunnel again, they were met with sudden gunfire. Soo-ho threw himself in the line of fire, shielding others and saving more than a dozen lives. But he was severely wounded in the process. Even as his strength faded, he couldn't bear the thought of dying without seeing Yang-ero one last time. Black Fox, realizing there was no more time, took the remaining survivors and retreated. Unable to accept this ending, Yang-ero defied orders and slipped back into the dormitory. She found Soo-ho again. Desperate to save her, the man used the $300 million as leverage, bargaining with the man in charge and giving the account password to Yang-ero alone. He wanted to ensure she had something to survive with. And then, quietly, he collapsed in a pool of blood. In the final moments of the story, Yang-o knelt beside his lifeless body, her hands trembling. She had lost him. The villains had paid the price. Later, she sat alone in the little tea house where they had first met. It was quiet now, and in the corner, only she could see him, her beloved, playing the song he had once written for her. The story ends here.